The first principle: everything is knowledge. The self-help trend has fetishized books, courses, and other traditional learning materials for too long. Of course they would. They are easy to produce, easy to sell, and you can easily convince someone of the benefits. And this is not inherently wrong. These traditional vehicles of information have stood the test of time, since people have used them for, well, thousands of years. But, you see, there's also a blind spot in this otherwise solid perspective. I'll be demonized for this, but there are things to learn from movies, games, theater, and you could probably make an argument for anything else you can think of. The difference between consumption, as people call it, and learning is the intention behind it, especially today when information is abundant in both content and sources. I can't even begin listing all the things I've learned from mediums that are usually condemned, like movies and games. You know, as a kid obsessed with military history, I did what any young war nerd with Wi-Fi did. I played way too many strategy games. So the thought sprang up, if this technology existed in the day and age of people like Caesar, Alexander, Hannibal, Napoleon, Frederick the Great, and many more, wouldn't they have at least engaged with it? If only to learn the basics. Here's what I think. As a human surrounded with vast possibilities of learning that present themselves in all sorts of shapes and sizes, you should not limit yourself to books and lectures. Instead, you should immerse yourself in an environment that sparks your curiosity. Have the intention to learn, not to consume only for entertainment. And if you manage to do this, you'll turn learning into the most enjoyable thing you ever do. Also, you'll never get bored with it because... Second principle: knowledge is interconnected, something we fail to acknowledge these days. And this is a regretful consequence of the rigid educational system that has committed the gravest sin an institution concerning knowledge can enact. It has cut complex topics in little, easily manageable categorized boxes that exist on their own. They did this in order to systemize what they taught you, but nothing ever exists in a void. Nature is codependent and does not care about your diploma. Academia chopped it up so you could pass exams, not understand the world. But experts and specialists will never admit this because it would strip their irrelevant titles off their weight. In contrast, geniuses knew this. As an example, Leonardo da Vinci's brilliance came from his deep understanding of this, such as human anatomy, nature, and even strength training. Yes, apparently Leonardo was the guy you'd call if you needed help moving to another palazzo. A very bad Renaissance joke. I'm sorry, let's return. The problem is, we try to understand the world by looking at individual pieces, when in reality, it is the synergy, the relation, the collaboration of concepts that we must discover in order to understand and master a domain. Imagine an electrician who knows everything you can imagine about wires working on a lights panel. Clouds form above the sky, and it starts pouring. Normally, the man would not get electrocuted since he knows what he's doing. But because he fails to see how things in the environment interact with each other, he doesn't stop working even though it's raining, which, as you can imagine, can't end very well. So, what I believe you must do in your studying is to engage other subjects that seem unrelated from time to time. If you can explain capitalism but not name a single failed empire, you don't understand capitalism. Your advantage lies in embracing variety, especially when the domain of study naturally leads up to it. For example, my studies of social dynamics led me to psychology, then primatology, politics, propaganda, and marketing. And this is a hurried example I gave for the sake of an example. But if you were to actually put these things on paper, the pattern would look similar to a neuronal network, with thousands of lines overlapping and connecting to each other, which is both fascinating and dopaminergic, and helps me create a transition to the next principle, which is Third principle: you have to love what you learn. Please don't listen to the masochistic crowd that preaches locking in on a subject you don't enjoy, just because you have ventured into it. What people do is they pick up a book, start reading, and it bores them to death. They don't understand it. They don't like the way the author writes, and the topic does not seem as interesting as it did at first. That, my friend, is your signal to throw it into the revisit later/never stack. Understand that your brain is wired in a unique way. You will be better at some things and worse in others. But what is certain is that you'll gravitate towards the things you enjoy. Why would you try to resist this? If you're thrown in the sea and begin to struggle, throwing your hand around chaotically to reach the shore, you'll get tired and drown. But if you relax and stay on your back, you'll effortlessly float to safety. While others force themselves to learn just because it sounds good, you actually build up proficiency that will help in the real world. What's the use of impressing people? Are you a quick fact machine that can insert a clever-sounding anecdote into every subject that arises? Don't get me wrong, that does make you feel good, but I think you can see how it pales in comparison to having the necessary knowledge to make things move in the direction you wish them to. Your brain worships dopamine, not discipline, so drive the car as it was meant to be driven. And this is exactly the fourth principle I'm trying to explain. Fourth principle: empirical knowledge always beats theoretical knowledge. Let me ask you a question. Do you want to be the guy who knows how to do something, or the one who's done it? Unfortunately, the world is full of experts who collapse outside lecture halls. The saying goes, nothing beats experience and practice, and how can you argue against it? You see it in business all the time. MBA students that memorize fancy words and complicated theories that they don't actually know how to apply, or as is the case in most situations, are not applicable to the real world. They just look good on paper. Meanwhile, some simple guy from a village opens a store, then two, then three, then negotiates, manages supply lines, imports, then exports, all without knowing what the rational expectations theory is. Because if he knew what it meant and accepted it as true, he would have made a wrong decision at some point, as this is a concept that sounds exquisite on paper, yet has negative implications in practice. The theory assumes that all individuals and companies make decisions optimally using all available information and correctly anticipate the effects of policies and events. The problem is that people are rarely rational, and as much as we like to deny it, the human animal is driven by emotion. If everyone acted under this theory, meaning everyone was rational in the world, you wouldn't have had the 2008 crisis because people would have foreseen the housing collapse and adjusted accordingly. And this is only one of the many examples I could give. The problem is that the modern human has developed a really egomaniacal hubris regarding his own understanding. And, as I've said earlier, reality does not give a fuck about what you think. Biology itself did not start with logic. Species survived, then we backfilled in the why. Let me give you another simple example relating to sushi. Everyone loves sushi. Wait, that's irrelevant. Okay, so chopsticks? Nobody invented chopsticks through a theory or solving equations. People just started using twigs to eat. They've observed that if they grab the food by hand, it will burn them. But if they used a stick, and then someone tried 2 sticks for double the control, and the rest is history. Of course, there are exceptions to this, but I've already ventured too far off topic. Yet, if you're interested in this, I'd recommend checking out Nassim Taleb's book, Anti-Fragile. It's honestly one of the best things I've ever read. But now, how do you practice empirical knowledge? Well, practice and experience. You do something, then you see what worked and what didn't. You now have a larger pool of knowledge. To evolve, you keep what worked, you strip the excess, and then you repeat. You'll level up with each trial. But don't get obsessed with it, because now, for the last point, I'll have to play the devil's advocate. Fifth principle: Never make learning a chore. Learning is not something we can fully control. It does not matter how hard you try. Yes, you can spend 10 hours a day trying to brute force your way into understanding, but reality once again works against you. After diving into something for hours on end, at some point, you will start to get diminishing results. It's normal. Fatigue builds up, focus shifts. You want to do something else, you're hungry, etc. Think of time like money. Would you want to invest $1 to make 10? Or would you like to invest $10 to make 1? Of course, you'd want the 10x as opposed to the 1.1x. But some fail to see this principle applies to all resource management, not just money. Time is limited, and you can't buy more of it. So use it wisely and use it efficiently. Plus, the harder you try to force yourself, the more resistance you encounter. Eventually, this crawl through the glass strategy will lead you to abandoning learning altogether because you'll hate it passionately, or you'll just frustrate yourself endlessly. I'm sorry, but if you hate something, it will be very hard to do it for your whole life, and learning is a marathon, not a race.